The following program is produced by Laura K. Henderson, Michael Ray Helms, and Jen Hebben under the direction of executive producer Laura K. Henderson and the Board of All Ears Theater, with funding provided by the Irving S. Gilmore Foundation and David Isaacson. All Ears Theater. In the 1930s and 40s, the noir detective was a popular figure in American entertainment. Whether in print, on the screen, or on the radio, these hard-boiled detectives with their shady dames were a reliable source for a good yarn. While writers like Dashiell Hammett and Raymond Chandler were acknowledged masters of the genre, less accomplished authors would often rely on gimmicks to hold the audience's interest. We now present an example by one of those not-so-gifted writers. Featured in tonight's cast are Mickey Sykes, Michael Ray Helms, Martin Burch, Richard Philpot, Glynis Fenn, Pam Clark, and Sarah Lynn Roddis. KQAX Radio, the Pride of Omaha, presents the Incognito Detective Service, brought to you by Gilman's Grout. Gilman's, when your tile deserves the very best. Starring Ollie Strickman and Prudence Foy, featuring Stu Markham, Wallace Page, and Doris Sample.
It was another Monday morning. Cold, wet, runny nose of a day that crawls into your bones and makes you want to lie down in a nice damp grave. Springtime in Weehawken. The name is Archer, Brad Archer. And yeah, that's right, I'm a private detective, a paid snoop, a professional busybody. As I sat on my assets in my crib on the 4th floor of the Fenn building, looking down on the street below, I couldn't help thinking, what a swell day for a murder. I was also wondering where I was going to get the letters for this month's rent, not to mention the last 2 months. Even with the war on, business was slack. Then all of a sudden, she walked in. She was a knockout. Tall, with honey blonde hair and legs all the way to the ground. She had all the right curves and all the right places.
She wore a little Schiaparelli number that left just enough to the imagination, alligator pumps, and a totally ridiculous hat that probably cost more than my car. She had enough sparklers on her neck and wrist to fill in for the 4th of July. She was solid money from head to toe. I opened my yap and said, "May I help you?"
Yes, is this the Incognito Detective Service?
That's what it says on the door.
I'd like to speak to one of your detectives. My name is Askew, Margo Askew, and I've got a problem.
Just a moment, please. I'll see if Mr. Archer is available. Mr. Archer, I have a Miss Askew here who would like to see you. Yes? Right away. This way, Miss Askew.
Thank you, and it's Mrs.
Good morning, Miss Askew.
That's Mrs. Askew.
Oh, my apologies, Mrs. Askew. Won't you please have a seat? No, don't go, Miss Trent. I'd like you to stay and take notes.
Yes, sir.
Now then, Mrs. Askew, why don't you tell me all about it?
It's about my husband, Randolph.
Randolph Askew, the financier.
Yes, the financier, and he's missing. I went to the police and filed a missing persons report, but they haven't found anything yet. So I thought I would try some less orthodox avenues. I asked around and got the name of your agency.
I see. And when was the last time you saw your husband?
3 days ago. After dinner, he said he was out of cigars and would drive himself to the drugstore. That was the last time I saw him. His car was found the next day in a ditch 8 miles from our house, but there was no sign of Randolph.
Uh-huh. Do you have any ideas as to what might have happened?
Well, ever since Randolph and I were married, the children from his first marriage have just been horrible to me. They never approved of our marriage and have been scheming to drive us apart. Maybe they had something to do with it?
I see. Anything else?
Well, for the last month or so, Randolph's been working late a lot and just hasn't been acting like himself. Jittery and short-tempered. I'm not sure, but once or twice, I think I smelled a perfume on him that wasn't mine. Then, 2 weeks ago, I found this in his overcoat pocket.
She pawed through the rubbish inside her purse and brought out a gaudy matchbook. From my vantage point behind her, I saw that along with all the other garbage in there, she also had a snub-nosed 38. My respect for Mrs. Margo Askew went up 5 points.
Here.
Mickey's place. Mickey's. I know that joint. It's a dive down by the waterfront. Now, Mrs. Askew, do you have a recent photograph of your husband that we can use?
I think so. Let me see.
She dove back into her purse and brought up a nightclub snap of herself with a much older, pasty-faced gink.
This was taken about 6 months ago at the Heron Club.
All right. We will have duplicates made and start making some inquiries. Hopefully, we'll be able to give you a progress report in a couple of days.
Thank you. Here is my card with my address and telephone number.
Thank you, Mrs. Askew. And try to relax. We will do all we can to find your husband. Miss Trent here will show you out.
This way, Mrs. Askew.
Thank you.
Okay, Gail, I think the first thing I ought to do...
Hold her right there, buddy boy. I don't pay you to think. I pay you to sit there behind that desk and look like what a detective is supposed to look like, while I do all the real work. You'd think with the war and all, people would be more accepting of a lady gumshoe. If the clients weren't such chumps, I could sit where you are and run my own agency. But a gal's got to do what a gal's got to do, and if that means playing a simpering secretary to your Sam Spade, then so be it.
All right, Gail, you've made your point. What's your first move?
My first move is to get a little more information about our client and her husband. I think I'll mosey on down to Billy's newsstand.
That broken down newsie? What can you get from him besides the current copy of True Detective?
Listen, bozo, before he got shot, Billy Bronkowski was the best bloodhound on the police force. He keeps his ears open and his mouth shut, something I wish present company would emulate. I'll be back in an hour. Hiya, Billy.
Gail, what do you hear? What do you say?
Nada, mi amigo. Give me the latest True Detective. I've got a junior gumshoe I'm trying to educate.
That'll be a dime.
Here.
All right. Now, what do you really want?
I need all you got on Randolph Askew and his blushing bride.
Now there's a story. Askew's first wife croaked about 1.5 years ago. He mooned around for a while, then copped a glimmer of this Margo. She was in the chorus of a review at the Rainbow Room. She took one look at his bank balance, and from then on, he was a gone goose. She made it her life's work to land him, and within 3 months, she had a ring on her finger, and he had one through his nose. She's been leading him around ever since.
That's kind of what I figured, Billy. Well, now, Sugar Daddy's gone missing, and I'm trying to find a good place to start looking. Any ideas?
Well, Margo's certainly a contender. She's a gold digger of the first order. But you can't ignore the kids either.
Kids? What about the kids?
Yeah, from his first marriage. Twins, a boy and a girl. Must be in their late 30s by now. Spoiled rotten by daddy and scared bald that their new mommy is going to get them kicked out of the will.
Now, that's an intriguing angle. Where might I find the heirs?
The Hotel Bonaventure, last I heard. The two of them share a suite paid for by daddy.
They live together?
Uh-huh. Just one big happy family, and all of them scratching to get old Randolph's loot.
I like my odds with the kids, and the Bonaventure is just a few blocks from here. Thanks, Billy. I owe you one.
Don't worry, Gailey. I always collect.
I hustled back to the office and woke up Brad. Then I dragged his flat feet over to the Hotel Bonaventure, an overpriced pile of bricks on the main drag downtown. I sent his card up to the Askew Kinder and was mildly shocked when they said we could come up. We took the elevator to the 6th floor and banged on the door.
Mr. Archer, won't you please come in?
Thanks. This is my secretary, Miss Trent.
How do you do? I'm Peter Askew, and this is my sister, Penelope.
Mr. Askew, Miss Askew, I'm here regarding an investigation into your father's recent disappearance.
Well, Mr. Archer, you don't have to look any further than that hussy Daddy married.
Margo?
Whatever. If she didn't do it, I'm the Prince of Wales.
That woman has been poisoning Daddy's affections for us ever since they were married. Just last week, he started making noises like he was going to cut off our support.
Your support?
Daddy pays for this hotel suite.
I see.
We would be thrown out into the street. By the way, has anything surfaced about the will?
I haven't heard anything about any will.
The last time we spoke with Daddy, he threatened to cut us out of his will, in addition to stop paying for our hotel.
The beast.
Indeed. So, naturally, Penelope and I were concerned as to whether he had time to change his will before his unfortunate disappearance.
Like I said, I don't know anything about a will.
What Detective Archer would like to know, though, is your whereabouts on last Tuesday night.
What? Why?
With the will in contention, that makes you two dandy suspects for your daddy's disappearance.
What? No.
And if the police haven't paid you a visit yet, they will soon, and it won't be for tea and crumpets.
Oh, Peter.
So, ante up. What about last Tuesday night?
Well, we went into the city to the symphony that evening, and then afterwards we went to Schraft's for a late dinner. We didn't get back here to the hotel until about 1 in the morning.
Uh-huh. We'll have to check all that out.
Peter, what would you think if we were to...
Oh, excellent suggestion, Penelope. Mr. Archer, we would like to engage your services in locating our father. Expense is no object.
But we're already working for it. Wow.
He would be happy to accept you as clients, wouldn't you, Mr. Archer?
Sure.
And now Mr. Archer has an appointment that he just can't miss. I'll send over the standard contract for you to sign.
Oh, thank you. And you'll let us know if you find out anything about the will?
Sure. We're going now?
Goodbye, Mr. Archer.
Goodbye, Mr. Archer, and thank you.
What was that all about? We're already working for Margo.
I've got a feeling that either those two beauties or Margo offed Randolph Askew. This way, no matter who done it, we still get paid.
Good thinking, boss. What's next?
I'm feeling kind of thirsty. What say we go get a drink at Mickey's place?
Okay, boss. What's the plan?
We'll go to the bar, you start asking questions, and keep the bartender busy. I'll peel off and do some snooping on my own.
Got it.
Hiya, Mac. What do you have?
A short beer for me and a ginger ale for the lady.
That'll be 30 cents.
There. Hey, Bud, take a look at this picture. You ever seen this garbanzo in your joint before?
Who wants to know?
Brad Archer, Private Seamus. Me and my pal here, Ben Franklin, have been hired to track him down.
Yeah, I've seen him around here a couple of times. And always with a different frail on his arm.
No kidding. Can you give me a description of the different dames?
Oh, sure. One was...
Excuse me, where can I powder my nose?
over there, next to hat check. Anyway, this one dame...
Check your hat, miss?
No, thanks. Look, Toots, I'm helping my boss with a little flat foot work. You ever seen the galoot in this snap in your joint before?
Yeah, a few times. I could also tell you a few things about the skirt in the picture, too, but it'll cost you.
I can pay, but it better be worth it.
Oh, it's worth it. But not in here. I go on break in a few minutes. Meet me in the alley behind the bar.
Okay, 3 minutes. I waited a few minutes, then ankled my way into the alley. Hatcheck was standing over by some rubbish cans, sucking on a coffin nail. I started towards her when suddenly from around the corner a Roscoe barked. I felt a whistle by my left ear and thought that now would be a good time as any to inspect the asphalt. Then I pulled out my rod and sent a couple of love letters back towards the corner. Nothing. Whoever was there was now long gone. I looked back at Hatcheck and saw she was on the ground, a bright red stain spreading underneath her. She was plugged but good. I ran over and lifted up her head. She was trying to say something. I put my ear to her lips just in time to hear,
Acme?
With that, her body went limp. She was as dead as vaudeville, poor kid. She may have been greedy, but she deserved better. In the distance, I heard a siren. I laid Hatcheck back on the pavement and thought that what with one thing and another, now might be a good time to take a powder, so I lammed out of there. I take being shot at personal. This was far from over.
And now a word from our sponsor. Gilman's Grout is proud to present Dr. Lawrence Kupperman of the National Tile Institute.
We here at the Institute have been exhaustively testing Gilman's grout, putting it through every conceivable stress. We have tested for color retention, adhesive flexibility, spreadability, and surface modulation. And in every case, Gilman's grout scored 10 out of 10. The proprietary ingredient, Fosdex, gives Gilman the edge over all other brands.
Thank you, Doctor. And there you have it, folks. Gilman's Grout is best by test. Gilman's, when your tile deserves the very best. Buy some today. And now we return to the Incognito Detective Service.
We were driving up to Margo Askew's dump to make my first report. She lived in a swanky cave in the Gennaro Hills neighborhood west of town.
As we pulled up the drive, there was an Acme plumbing truck parked by the front door. Acme. Was that a coincidence? We ditched the car and punched the chimes.
Ja, may I help you?
Brad Archer to see Mrs. Askew.
Please to come in. Please wait here. I call Mrs. Askew.
Remember, Brad, nothing about what happened in the alley behind Mickey's place or about the will. I want the Askew dame to think we're just working the unfaithful husband angle.
Got it, boss.
Mr. Archer, thank you for coming. Won't you step into the drawing room?
Thanks.
Now then, Mr. Archer, what progress have you made?
I have ascertained that your husband was seen in public with various other women. I followed up the lead at Mickey's place, and your husband's behavior was confirmed by the bartender.
Oh dear. You mean he was playing around on me?
It certainly looks that way. Miss Trent, do you have the report?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Archer. I left it in the car. I'll just pop out and get it.
Thank you.
I lit out of there and managed to scare up the maid. What's your name, honey?
Frieda, miss. Frieda Mool.
Do I detect a bit of an accent there, Frieda?
Ja, miss. I am refugee from Germany. Miss Askew took me in and gave me this job.
A beautiful soul. Well, Frieda, honey, can you tell me why there's an Acme plumbing truck out front?
They have been adding a new bathroom off the kitchen. The whole house has been torn up for weeks.
Uh-huh. And who ordered this new bathroom?
I really don't know. I suppose it was the master.
Thanks, kid. Here's a 5-spot. Now, mum's the word on all of this.
Ja, miss.
I brought in the report and we shot the breeze a little while longer. Then we scrammed out of that mausoleum.
So what's next, boss?
I want you to keep working on the unfaithful husband angle. But I'll tell you, Brad, this case is starting to make me feel a little backed up. I think it's about time I paid a visit to the drips at Acme Plumbing.
Acme Plumbing? Yes, Mrs. Bostwick. They should be there in about 15 minutes. You're welcome. Gail, how you doing, doll?
Can't complain, Tess. How you been?
I can't complain either, hon. No one would pay any attention to me if I did. What brings you around to my neck of the woods?
I need some info, Tess. Is the boss in?
Nah, Mr. Harlow Schiff has been spending more and more time away from the office. Thank goodness. You know, if I didn't know better, I'd say he had something going on the side. But who would want that needle-nosed halibut?
Stranger things have happened. Anyhow, I want to ask you about the job you're doing at the Askew joint.
Oh, yeah? New bathroom. Big bucks on that job. Harlow priced it through the roof. We're just about done.
So did old man Askew order the work?
No, I think it was that piece of arm candy called a wife who made the order. Harlow's been handing the job personal.
Personal, huh? You know, Tess, I think I'm beginning to see a little glimmer of light at the end of this particular tunnel.
Any messages, Tess?
On your desk, Mr. Schiff.
Thanks. And who do we have here?
Oh, this is my girlfriend, Gail Trent. She came by to go out to lunch.
Oh, really? You look familiar, Miss Trent. Have we met before?
I don't think so, Mr. Schiff. I'm sure I would have remembered meeting someone as handsome and distinguished as you.
Well, aren't you nice? You might as well take your lunch now, Tess. And in the future, try not to clutter up my outer office with your low-life friends. I'm not running a coffee clutch here, you know.
Nice guy.
Try working for him.
Come on, kid, I'm buying you lunch today. This was one trip that was really worth it.
We will return to the Incognito Detective Service after this word from Gilman's Grout.
Honey, the man tiling our powder room has a question for you.
Yes, Mr. Delaney?
Hiya, Ace. I just need to know what kind of grout yous want me to use on them new tiles.
I was planning on using Gilman's grout.
Oh, but honey, Gilman's is so expensive.
Darling, it would be a false economy to use anything else. Gilman's now has Fosdex, which makes it the longest lasting grout on the market today.
You ain't just whistling Dixie, sport.
And, sweetheart, we owe it to our boys fighting overseas to do the very best possible job we can here at home.
Oh, honey, you're wonderful.
That's right, folks. Keep America strong for our boys overseas by using Gilman's Grout, now with Fosdex. Gilman's, when your tile deserves the very best. And now we return to the exciting conclusion of the Incognito Detective Service.
I had a lot of ideas crawling around my brain box. I needed to chew things over with Billy Bronkowski, my favorite newsie. It was 10:45 at night, and I was doing a brisk stroll towards Billy's newsstand. I had that funny feeling on the back of my neck like I was being watched. I looked around, but didn't see anything. I stepped up to Billy's and was just about to open my yap when Billy yelled,
Gail, get down!
I dove into a stack of Modern Bride, and 2 shots whistled over my head. This was getting monotonous. Billy, what the hell?
You okay, kid? I saw the glint of a gun barrel in the streetlight and thought you might be on the menu.
Did you see who it was?
Nah, it was too dark. I just heard his steps when he ran off.
You know, Billy, I'm getting tired of being everyone's favorite target. Sometime soon, this garbanzo's aim is going to improve, and I'm going to wind up taking a dirt nap.
What are you gonna do, kid?
I think the time has come to put a little pressure on all the folks involved in this mess and see which egg cracks first.
We were back at the Askew hacienda having another powwow with our client. We were keeping her in the dark about the Acme plumbing angle,
but fed her a long line of malarkey about her husband's so-called infidelities. I'd also invited the Askew twins, who arrived a few minutes after we did. Margo wasn't too happy about this development, and neither were Peter and Penelope. If looks could kill, we'd all have had rigor mortis. Things were just starting to heat up when I excused myself to go to the sandbox. On the way, I hunted up the maid.
May I help you, miss?
Hiya, Frieda. Tell me, which door leads to the basement?
That one, over there, miss.
Thanks, kid. I walked over and opened the door to the basement and poked my head down the stairs. One glance told me all I needed to know. I hightailed it back to the party. As I got near the drawing room, I heard raised voices. Hanging back in the hall, I peeked around the corner and...
Mr. Archer, I don't know what you're talking about. I had nothing to do with poor Randolph's disappearance.
Oh, yeah? Well, we know all about you and Harlow Ship and Acme Plumbing, so don't play dumb with me.
So, you know all about Acme, huh? Well, here's my side of the story. Ah! Grab the ceiling, Flatfoot.
What?
Put your hands up.
Ah.
Apparently, you're not as stupid as everyone led me to believe, but I'm not gonna let a dumb mokes like you spoil my plans. All of you, move over there and keep your hands where I can see them.
She maneuvered Brad and the Askew offspring over to the corner. But before I could make my move, I heard,
Margo, who's that behind you?
Where?
Hoist them high, Margo.
What?
Raise your hands.
I see.
And drop the heater.
You didn't think we were going to meet here with you and not bring any protection, did you? Now that we've got you where we want you, where is the will?
Will?
Please to elevate your extremities, Herr Askew.
What?
Put your hands in the air.
Got it.
Frieda, what's going on?
I am sorry, Schöne Frau, but I am not as I seem. For reasons I cannot explain, I cannot risk losing the cover of working in this house. If I allow Mr. Archer to arrest Mrs. Askew, it would invite scrutiny into my situation. This I cannot allow to happen. Please, Mrs. Askew, move over there with the others.
Frieda then herded all the cattle into the far corner. This gave me the chance to sneak around behind her. I jabbed my gat into her giblets. Levitate your digits, toots.
Was?
Hands in the air.
Oh.
Yeah, Margo, we know all about you and Harlow's shift. Your husband's missing all right, and you're the one who's going to go over for it.
But you don't understand. Randolph was so mean. He abused me emotionally and beat me repeatedly. Checkers, Parcheesi, you name it. But when I met Harlow, he gave me the courage to escape Randolph's cruelty.
You can save that act for the judge, sweetheart. All I get to do is turn you over to the cops. After that, I couldn't care less. As I was yammering away, I felt the kiss of a pearl-handled .45 in my short ribs. A slight glance to the north told me the owner was one Harlow Schiff, president of Acme Plumbing.
Dust the chandelier, everyone.
What?
Hands up.
Right.
I knew I remembered seeing you somewhere before, Miss Trent, and now it all makes sense. It was dark, but it was you in the alley behind Mickey's place. Now, we can take care of you, Archer, and the Askews and wrap up all the loose ends in one nice, neat package for the police.
Plug 'em now, Harlow. I don't trust any of them as long as they're vertical.
Shut up. We have to figure out what to do with the bodies first. After all, we can't just put them all in with Randolph, now can we? All right, folks, we're going to take a nice little car ride. The Hudson River is just around the corner. But before we go, you're all going to drop your guns and kick them over to Margo, capiche? Pick 'em up, babe. Okay, boys and girls, nice and easy. Let's all go out to my car.
All right, everybody, grab the ozone.
Huh?
Put your hands up where I can see them. Oh. And don't anybody move. I've got you all covered.
Glad you finally made it, Brophy. You sure took your own sweet time getting here.
I got here as soon as I could, Trent.
Did you hear everything?
I heard enough. These birds are going away for a long, long time.
Good. And for the clincher, I've got something in the basement I want you to take a glimmer at. 2 days later, I was back in my saddle at the Flem building, sharing a snifter with Billy Bronkowski. Another snort, Billy?
I don't know, Gailey. I really should be getting back to the newsstand.
Don't worry about that. Brad can handle it. Besides, it'll do him good to learn a trade.
Well, in that case, don't mind if I do. Say, this is pretty good hooch. What did you do, knock over a bank or something?
Nah, I just got paid by the Askew twins. When they found out that Randolph's will hadn't been changed, they were very grateful.
Oh, I bet they were. So tell me, how did you trip up Margo Askew?
Well, Billy, I knew that if I threw Margo and the Askew kids together, I would really get the kettle boiling. Then I had Brad accidentally spill the Acme Plumbing angle. I was pretty sure that would push Margo over the edge.
Pretty devious, Gail.
Well, I learned from the best.
Anybody to home?
Hiya, Brophy. Pull up a glass and sit down.
Well, I'm on duty. I really shouldn't. Better just make it 3 fingers. I thought I'd stop by and give you an update on the Askew caper. We dug up the basement and found old Randolph. He had a slug in his back that matched a certain peroxide blonde snub-nosed 38.
Yeah, when I looked in the basement, I could see that the excavation was a lot bigger than was needed for the plumbing job they were doing. But what I don't get is why bump off Randolph at all? He was loaded and didn't seem to grudge her the spending of it.
Well, that's where Schiff comes into the picture. After he and Margo started playing patty cake, he convinced her to off Randolph for the insurance payout. And then the two of them would hightail it for South America.
And what about that crazy Maid? What was her story?
Oh, the State Department took her away. It seems that our friend Frieda was really some sort of German agent.
I thought there was something kind of screwy about that dame.
And Schiff spilled the beans on Margo. She was the one who paid off the bartender at Mickey's place to feed you the line of guff about old Randy's fooling around. But it was Schiff who took the shots at you, Gail, and killed the head check girl.
I figured Margo did it when she sicked me on the Askew kids. She thought that if I couldn't pin Randolph's disappearance on them, I at least might scare him off about the will.
Well, Margo and Schiff are going away for a nice long vacation at government expense. You know, they might have gotten away with it, too, if it hadn't been for the best Seamus in his skirt that I've ever known.
Ah, thanks, Brophy. And you too, Billy. I couldn't have did it without you. Now, I'd like to propose a toast. Here's to crime.
To crime! You've been listening to the Incognito Detective Service on KQAX Radio, the pride of Omaha. Brought to you by Gilman's Grout, now with Fosdex. Gilman's, when your tile deserves the very best. Tonight's program was written by Myron Carraway and directed by Oscar DeMille, with sound effects by Walter Foley and music by Ezra LeMaine. This is your announcer, Biff Skeffington, inviting you to join us next week for another adventure with the Incognito Detective Service. You've been listening to the Incognito Detective Service, written and directed by Tim Eschelbach, with sound engineering by Lester Batts of Sound Solutions and Martin Clem of Kalamazoo Recording. The music was composed by Hal Hobson Morris and performed by Deb Phillips and Laurie Hatfield. Sound effects were performed by Gary Brown and Jake Burrell. This nonprofit production was performed at the First Baptist Church, KNAC, and is copyrighted by All Ears Theater, with all of the rights reserved by the author. Any resemblance to persons living or dead, or characters, names, places, or incidents is purely coincidental. This is your announcer, Mickey Sykes, thanking you for listening and inviting you to visit us again for another audio theater presentation.